Good morning, everyone. My name is Leslie Denard. I'm a career advisor here with the Career Services team. We are today featuring our recruiting and corporate hiring consultant, Gary O'Neill. Gary is presenting our webinar entitled Navigating Career Transition, and we're so happy that you're here with us today. So just a few little odds and ends before we begin. First of all, we will be using the GoToWebinar platform. So you're all currently in listen-only mode. If you will, just to make sure that you actually can hear my voice, click the raised hand feature, if you will, and I can see if you can hear me. Great. I do see some hands going up. That's wonderful. Okay, perfect. Well, before we get started, I do want to let you know occasionally we can have some technical challenges. So if that does happen, just hang tight with us. If you lose audio on your end at any time or you have any issues, just exit the webinar and log back in. That will usually fix any connectivity issues that you might be having. Now, this session today is being recorded. You will get a link to the recording as well. So feel free also to share that link with anybody that you feel needs it, especially in these times. I'm sure that you have a friend or someone that you think might be able to utilize this information. So we encourage you to share it as much as you need to. We do have a questions section, so we would encourage you also to ask questions as we go. Gary takes breaks, as you know, a little in between here and there, and so we can ask some of these questions. If we don't get to your question right away, though, we will get to it at the end, and we are happy to answer any and all of your questions that you might be having. Now, one last thing, I want to bring your attention to the toolbar, your GoToWebinar toolbar, and you'll find a handout section, and that is where you'll find Gary's handout that he is using today. It's on the dashboard at the bottom in the little gray handouts section. So you can see it right there. And actually, while we're here, I do want to see a little more about who we are working with today. We'd love to know more about you. So I'm going to deploy a quick little poll here. And I'd like to know, you'll see it on your screen, what category you fall into. Which one best describes you? And this really is designed just to help us understand a little more about where you're coming from, what your situation is, a little ahead of time before we get started. And I'm just going to leave this up for just another couple of seconds. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the poll, but here we go. Okay, I think we can close the poll now. Thank you all for participating in that. And it looks to me like, just to let you guys know, 40% of you are current students and 50% are recent graduates. And so we, 10% are other. I like to share the poll with you guys and let you know where it ends up. So that's where we are. And we, again, encourage you to ask questions as we go. And without further ado, Gary, you now have the floor.
Great. Thanks, Leslie. Hello, everyone. I'm Gary O'Neill, and I'm here to talk to you about navigating career transition. This particular session is a bit of an overview. I mean, there's clearly there will be some things you can take away that are actionable, but in each one of the areas that we're going to dive into, we typically have some other webinars or sessions that are going to go into more detail on those. But I think this is going to be a great overview of a lot of the components of navigating career transition. I'm really here to talk to you today about getting hired, right? And the whole notion here is that, you know, sometimes you might feel like you're on the outside looking in, and that's really fair. And the reason why I know that is that, you know, I've been a corporate recruiting consultant and running recruiting teams up to 35 people for some of the largest corporations in the United States, for tiny startup companies and everything in between. I've seen the inside of about 350 companies and well over 10,000 hires, probably closer to 15,000 at this point in time. And I get it, right? I mean, how every company works is a little bit different. And I do understand that if you haven't done this much and you haven't been on the inside, I mean, it's easy to feel like you're on the outside looking in. You apply for jobs, you never hear back. You go into interviews, you never hear back. You're wondering what's going on. You make all kind of assumptions, right? All of that. And I get it. I'm just a curious guy, and I pay so much attention to all the different dynamics involved in recruiting and hiring and the job market and employment. And so the notion that I've got is that it's a whole lot easier to win if you know how to play the game. And that's what I'm here to do today, which is to share with you not just about resumes, or not just about LinkedIn, or not just about, we have these webinars that we do on specific areas, but this session is really about trying to pull all of that together so you get the entire flow of what it means to make it easier to win by knowing how to play the game. Yeah, so that's what we're here to do today. Here's what it takes really to be successful in a job search, successful in transition, successful in your career, which is, one is, it's clear that you have to have the skills and the ability to do the work. I can't hire you as a network administrator if you don't have at least the basic skills to be a network administrator. I can't hire you as a brain surgeon if you don't have the skills to be a brain surgeon. So one part of the equation is the ability to have the skills to do the work. And that's a whole lot of what the training programs that you're either in now or that you've graduated from are really all about. And the other piece of it is the skill to land the job, because job search really is a skill, and how you go about your job search really matters. And Leslie, who is there, who's here with me, hi again, Leslie. Um, she's part of the career services team, and the career services team is here to help you navigate your job search, to help you with resumes, to help you with every single facet of it. In fact, they're deeply involved in all of the same components that I'm here to talk to you about. So I think some people believe that their ability to, in particular, if you're in career transition, is just about the technical skills or the administrative skills, or the, whatever particular skills it is that you're learning. And I'm here to tell you that that's just not how it is. It's not just that. As a matter of fact, if you look at the core skills in any area that you have that you get through training and certifications, um, that's what it takes to open the door with respect to being able to transition into a new career. But the skills around landing the job and managing your career go beyond just opening the door, right? Because, as an example, you might be in IT, you may get IT certifications, and it's that's going to open doors for you to get into that profession. But from that point forward, it's going to be the career skills, the career services skills, the job search skills that are going to continue to help you thrive from that point. So we're here to talk about kind of an overall view of that second part, which is the skills to land the job. And that's what we're here to talk about, because how you find a job matters. It really does. And as one of the guys who's on the inside, right? I'm on the inside. I work for corporations. I make my living because people get hired, but I make my living not by working with, like, Leslie's team, and the career services team is there to help all of you as individuals move forward in your career. I actually represent the other side of the equation, which is the hiring organizations and the recruiting teams and the hiring managers. I mean, that's the world that I live in. And so I can guarantee you without question that how people approach that makes an enormous difference in how things work. Simple example, this just happened, was it yesterday? If it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before yesterday. Or I'll just generalize it. So as an example, it's not unusual at all that I have people who are reaching out to me, and very often when they're reaching out to me, the outreach is, hey, I'm a project manager, I'm an XYZ and I do these kinds of things. Would you mind reviewing my resume, and maybe we could set a time to have a call to see whether or not I might be able to help out, you or one of your companies. And it's kind of like, well, I get it, but I don't got the time. I mean, really, I don't have the time. And these are just simple examples. The person I was thinking about, though, the other day, and this is rare, reached out to me. He's a previous candidate, if you will, and reached out to me and said, hey, Gary, I know that it's really unlikely that you have a role for me. If you'll recall, I solved this problem, this problem, this problem. I just wanted to keep an open dialogue for when the time is right. By the way, I see that the companies you're working with have needs for UI, UX developers, those kinds of things. I know people in my network who have, so let me know if there's anything that I can do to help you. And so all I can tell you is that one simple change in that one individual's outreach to me makes all the difference in the world, because instead of coming from a needy perspective and wanting to take something and wanting something from me, this person essentially, and this is again a simple example, this person essentially came and said, hey, remember me? I do these things, I solve these problems. And oh, by the way, what can I do to help you? Because I've got a little bit of a network too. My point isn't that you need to have a network. My point is that how you go about your job search matters, how you communicate with people matters. And if I could have you, if I could just have you leave this session with one thing, if I had to pick one, the one thing that I would pick is that with regard to a job search is that I don't even like the phrase job search. In fact, that's what you need to change. If I could have you take away one thing, it would be that going about finding a team and a group of people for whom you can do work with, that you can get paid for, and the rest works out so much more if when you go out there to do that, instead of going and looking for a job, you go and you look for people who you can help, right? That one thing will make the single biggest difference in your ability to navigate your career, for your ability to land a better job more quickly, regardless of whether or not the job market is tougher or easier. It changes over time all the time. But that one simple thing, which is drop the notion that you're out looking for a job, because that's taking, right? That's because you need something. And I'm not suggesting it's not okay to need something. I'm just suggesting that if you go out into the world and your approach, because how you find a job matters. If your approach of finding a job is really not about finding a job, it's really about finding people and finding problems that you can solve, then things will go so much better for you. So, but I'm also here to take you through the nuts and bolts of all the different phases of the job search itself. And again, I don't know what else to call it, because we all call it job search, but I think if we changed our attitude and decided that it's not about a job search, it's more like James is the guy's name, reached out to me, and he clearly wasn't, he's looking for a job, right? But that wasn't what he told me. And he didn't want my time. He just said, hey, remember me? I solve these kinds of problems. If there's anything I can do to help, I have a network too. So all right, job search, and the good news is job search is a skill, and it's a skill that everyone can learn. And let me see what I can do to kind of help you learn a lot of it, like right now. So one of the things that I do know that's on your mind, and by the way, there's Leslie, where do you want them to type? Is it in the is it in the question section in the chat session? Where did you want them to type things if they want to know stuff?
Yeah, there's a section that's called questions. It's a box, and you may
Yeah.
need to click the down arrow. And Gary, while I have you, I wanted to let you know occasionally your camera freezes up. So
Ah.
your audio is great, no problem. But I just wanted to let you know about your camera every so
All right.
often.
Well, if it keeps doing it, I'll just turn it off. I'm not sure.
It's up to you. I don't think it's impeding. I just wanted to let you know it was happening.
Okay. I'll
So
make it a little bit
ask
smaller
questions.
on here on my screen and see if it helps. Y'all don't know what I look like anyway. You don't need to see me
Yeah,
anymore.
you look
All right,
fabulous, Gary.
cool. What I was going to say about those question areas, though, is that one, I would be very curious right now. If you have things that are on your mind in particular that you'd like to make sure that we cover in this session, I would love for you to type those in. We may or may not be able to get to all of them, but if there's stuff that's on your mind, things that you really want to learn, things that are bothering you, things that were in your way, things that are impeding you, things that could help you, anything, right? If you wouldn't mind taking a couple of minutes and just like filling out some of those things, Leslie will be looking at those. Some of them they'll be able to answer now. Some of them we can answer after the fact, and some she's going to help me weave into this particular session. So, but what I did want to point out is that clearly we're in the middle of a pandemic, which has caused all kinds of interesting things with regard to jobs and employment. Unemployment rate, we don't know exactly what it is yet because it's changing, but it's rising above levels in the 2008, 2009 time period. But let me share this with you. On this little screen up here, I don't even want to go into a whole lot of detail. Here's what I'd like to share with you is that I suspect a lot of you have concerns about it. You have concerns, and I see it all the time. People are asking me, what's happening with respect to older workers? Where are the jobs at? Where are the, all these litany of questions that people have. And here's what I'd like to share with you. My main thing that I have to tell you about that is that none of the answers to the questions that you might be curious about change what it is that you need to do, right? Regardless of how many jobs are available, it doesn't change what you need to do with regard to your job search, regardless of any impact to a particular set of people, be it early stage workers or late stage or older or younger or any of those things. It doesn't change what you need to do. I know that people all the time, like just this morning, a candidate sent me a message, says, hey, I see that job still posted, I assume you guys haven't hired anybody, or I see it posted again, maybe you didn't hire. And it's just like, here's all I can tell you is that I've been inside of so many companies now, and I've seen hiring happen every single time. And all of the questions that people often ask me about what's going on, they want to leap to some conclusion. And all I can tell you is that the only conclusion I can ever draw on what's happening with the marketplace and what's happening with older workers and what's happening in IT and what's happening in this area and what's happening in that, all I know is that if any one of us on this call was to know the answer, it's most likely to be me. I don't know everybody on the call, but it's most likely to be me. And all I can tell you is that after having done what I do for well over 20 years at this point in time, I have no idea. Right? I have no idea exactly what all is going on. But the good news for you is that, and my point really is that regardless of to the answers of any of the questions about things you might be just curious about or worried about, with respect to landing a great new opportunity, none of the answers to any of those questions are going to change what you need to do. So I'm here to tell you about some of the things you can do and some of the actions that you can take. However, I do want to make one comment on this little graph that we got. I mean, clearly you have this rapid decline, pretty unprecedented. Who knows exactly where the bottom is at? We're probably somewhere near that. And in my world, the way that I view things is this, and I'm going to give you one piece of something you might be wondering about. In my world, it's like this. My business, I run recruiting firms, and my business success is really a function of how many transactions called hires are going on in any period of time, hires per week, hires per month, hires per whatever it is. And, that is, that's the market opportunity for me and my business is the number of transactions per month called hires, because I can participate in those transactions. Here's the good news in all of this, which is about 30% to 35% in the last 10 years of all transactions called hires are not because of growth, but they're because of turnover. They're because of people changing jobs. And that has actually accelerated. I've actually seen more in my client base, and I'm talking about the companies that I know really well. They've had higher turnover in the last few months. I'm not talking about because of layovers. I'm talking about people changing jobs than they have before. So 35% or so of all hires are due to people changing jobs. And so at least a third of the hires that always happen will continue to happen, are continuing to happen. I can also share with you that I have a lot of recruiter friends, and we had a call just recently, and we're all seeing the exact same thing, which is a little bit of growth has, the hiring to grow has slowed a bit in a lot of areas. And of course, there are some industries that are really impacted, but we're talking about in general. But my clients have continued to hire. My clients have continued to move forward with those needs. And so despite the fact that that there's a lot of unemployment, companies are and always have and always will continue to hire. And so that means that what you need to do is focus on executing the best job search strategy you possibly can, regardless of the answers to any niggling questions or worries that you have. And the more that you can take your attention off of those things and focus your attention on the things that you can do, the better off you're going to be. So we're not going to talk about that a whole lot. So, all
Hey,
right.
Gary,
Yes.
do me a favor. Can you flip to the graph? Because you're talking about the graph,
Uh-huh.
and we're seeing your LinkedIn profile real quick.
Uh-huh. Oh, you're
And
seeing my LinkedIn profile?
yeah,
Oh, it must have switched screens. How weird. 1 second.
so
Now you're seeing that?
there you go. Yeah,
Yeah, there
and
you
that's,
go.
yeah, we're back with you there.
Okay, good. So all
Yeah,
this is there's been a pretty rapid decline. We're somewhere around in this area right now, probably. And what's happening is that during this period of time, the number of transactions called hires was still ongoing. I mean, in the clients that I have, there was no change. I've been fortunate in that. There's some other companies that have been some change, but I have a big group of recruiters, and for the most part, we haven't seen a whole lot of change. It's very industry specific, role specific. IT administrative roles, some of those kinds of things. We've seen not a whole lot of change in that. It's very isolated. And the number of transactions called hires right here is driven largely by attrition. And attrition has always accounted for at least 35 or so percent of all hires, and that has not changed at all. And then what's going to happen is that as we move into recovery, which we will, right? I mean, we will, and it's not even going to be all that protracted. It's going to be measured in months, but it's not like the 2008 debacle where there was a fundamental problem in our economy. When the recovery happens, I mean, the opportunity for me and my business is going to be like it's never been before, because the opportunity for me and my business is transactions per month called hires, hires per month. And as the unemployment rate goes down, that means the number of transactions called hires per month is going up, and it's going to go up very rapidly. And companies that aren't hiring have let go of their recruiters and the rest. So anytime there is a real opportunity for my company, that means there's a real opportunity for individuals to land a better job faster, because the number of transactions called hires, the number of hires per month, is going to be exceedingly high in this period going ahead, because if it doesn't go way above what's normal, we never get back to some semblance of a reasonable unemployment rate, and we will. So now is an awfully good time to start working on your plans. Just like in my business, we're working on our plans. Our business is off a little bit, but it will. On the other side of this, there's going to be a ton of opportunity for everybody. So let's just move on and let's talk about some stuff about what we can actually do no matter what. So this is a question that I've been thinking about for years, and I still come up with the same answer. If you've been in some of my sessions before, this is a question that I like a lot. But the question is, what does every person who gets hired, what do they have in common? Because the idea is that if we knew what they all have in common, then we should do that or have that or become that or whatever it is, copy that model. Let's look at it. Like, what can we find that they're all in common, right? And so I'm curious, maybe you could help me out a little bit. And Leslie, if you wouldn't mind, I mean, what are some of the things you think that everyone who gets hired, tell me about them. I mean, what is it that they have or do or something like that, the people who get hired? Tell me a little bit about that.
All right, let's see what we've got. We did get some questions earlier, by the way, so we'll definitely be getting to those.
Yeah, I'll have a good place coming up here in a bit that we can address some of those.
Yeah. Let's see. Looks like we've got some folks typing.
Okay.
Everybody, okay. One thing they have in common is they're looking for a job.
Okay.
A lot of competition.
Yeah, and how about, let me address a couple of these as we go. So I get it, but that couldn't be further from the truth. I would say that 95% of all the people that my company gets hired weren't looking for a job, because we're headhunters. We reach out to them. So my little view of the world and all the recruiters who I know, I would say that probably 40 to 50% of all hires, maybe 30%, but it's some significant chunk are people who are not looking for a job. So it's true that a lot of them are, but everybody who gets hired doesn't have that in common at all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Another one we have says that they have either a certain skill, or they know the hiring manager,
Yeah, that's
or
awful.
they're at the front of the line.
Yeah, there you go. This is amazing much stuff. I've been through it all, right? Which is they have a better resume, they interview well, they know some people, and all those things are really, really, really helpful. But the only thing that's true in every single one of them is that they get to the front of the line. That's it. I can't find a single other thing, and I don't mean to like make this trivialize it. I mean, on the one hand, that's a no duh, but on the other hand, I'm here to tell you that your resume is in your way, and applying for a job online is in the way. All of those things are in the way. And what I mean by getting to the front of the line is talking to the hiring manager. I mean, that's it. I know of zero people who got hired who didn't talk to the hiring manager. So what if you could fast forward? What if you could skip everything else? And what if you go straight to having a conversation with the hiring manager? That's what we would want to do, right? That's what I would do. So if it were me in the mode, that's what I do when I'm selling services. I mean, kind of going and finding a job is exactly the same thing when I go to market to get business. and I go straight to the people who have the problem. And the people who have the problem are, in my case, it's either the business leaders or the HR leaders, or my best target is essentially going straight to the hiring managers because those are the ones that have the problem. Let me tell you a little bit more about getting to the front of the line, and then we're going to go into the steps to do this. But the other thing about the front of the line, and one of the things that is going to be a problem for companies going forward, is that the lines are so much longer now. I'm not a fan of posting jobs. My team doesn't post jobs. I try to discourage my clients from it, and it's getting even worse now. Here's the reason why. One of my clients a few weeks ago posted a job. Uh, I mean, it used to be, it used to be 250 people or so applied. 570 people applied, right? And the majority of them aren't even remotely qualified. And, we got to wade our way through the stack, and it's not any fun. My point, though, is that the way that companies hire is they can't look at and consider all 570 or all 250. And so it's always the case that the people who show up first, the people who show up at the front of the line, the people whose resumes better match, the people who end up, a company will end up considering, and what I mean by considering is looking at the resume even, maybe 50, right? Maybe 50, probably not usually. And then the number of people who actually get an interview, even a first interview for a typical job, 10 maybe, right? 10 maybe. And then the hiring manager talks to maybe 3 or 4 is all. And so when you have a line of people who have applied for a job that's 570 deep, but the company is really only going to consider, because they only have time to truly consider about 20 or 30 resumes and narrow it down, what's the chance that there's somebody in that other 540 people or so that the resume didn't even get looked at, who are better, stronger, faster, cheaper, a better hire? Well, statistically, there probably is. So in any given hiring situation, when people are applying for a job, a company only really has the time and considers a small fraction of that. And statistically, the rest of that set of people will look similar to that set. And so the thing about it is that the number one thing that you can do with regard to landing a better job faster is to focus on everything you need to do to get to the front of the line. Because if you don't get yourself to the front of the line, you get to be one of the group of people who isn't considered, which is the majority of people who apply for a job or never considered, right? That's just kind of how it is because there isn't enough time. So let's talk about what we can do about that. So the problem at the bottom where we're at right now is there are fewer jobs and there's more people per job, which makes my job so much harder, right? And it makes the hiring organization's job so much harder. But it actually, in some weird sense, makes your job easier on the one hand because it's a little bit easier to stand out. But the other thing I want you to share with you is that, the job search process is more of a marathon than a sprint, and there just happens to be more runners right now. And so your ability to really stand out and to get to the front of the line is more important probably than it ever is. However, isn't it weird that shouldn't you have always run the best race that you possibly could? And it just so happens that slightly in the past, 9 months ago, you could have done a sloppy job of running the race, and you probably still could have run one of the races because there weren't all that many people in every single one of the marathons. Now there's a lot. And so you need to execute the best marathon that you possibly can. And that's what I want to talk to you about, right? So the opportunity for you is that it's a mess for employers. It's a mess for hiring managers right now. It's a mess for recruiters right now. There's more hay per needle, and standing out matters. And that weirdness of all the hay makes it even easier to stand out than it used to, right? So also keep in mind that hiring is not one big decision. Hiring is really a series of micro decisions, and those micro decisions come with sound effects, and those sound effects are like, oh yeah, great, yeah, nice. Or the other sound effect is nah, right? And so it even starts with the way that you applied for a job, right? It starts there. Did you come in through Indeed or did you come in directly through the corporate website, right? Coming through the corporate website's the better answer, by the way. And we go into that in effective job search strategies in a whole lot of detail. We don't have time in this particular session, but your resume, even the name of your resume. I got one the other day. Somebody had emailed me their resume. The name of their resume was Fixed Resume 4, .docx. I was like, Fixed Resume 4, nice. I mean, what about, maybe it's fixed, right? Just weird stuff like that. And no single one of them matters a whole lot, but it's this whole series of micro decisions, because we as human beings have this thing that's called confirmation bias, and we can't help it, which is we decide very quickly at a brainstem level. We make decisions and we like to stick with the decisions that we've made. And when you make me go, right? When you make me go, right? I just made a decision about you. And I'm now in the mode of trying to reinforce that decision. I see it all the time. I see hiring managers who open a resume and go, oh, wow, that person works over XYZ company. They hire really, really well. So I bet this person's really great. I'm kind of going, the only thing you know is where they work, right? I mean, that's the only thing you know. You have no idea. The exact opposite occurs, which is I have companies that say, oh, we won't hire anybody who works over at XYZ company because they don't hire very well and all their people are terrible. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that you think that there's nobody who's great who works at that company? My point here is that you can take so much control over your job search when you understand this particular behavior, and you can understand what it takes to get to the front of the line, and you can understand that what it really means is we need to shift the odds in your favor each and every single step, because it's not just one big decision, it's this whole series of micro decisions that happen. And I don't mean it's a decision called your recruiter interview and then the next interview and the next interview. I'm saying inside of those, there's 100 decisions that are making. And I want to talk to you about those different decisions that are making. All right. Um, Before we go on to this section, let me stop there. And Leslie, you were saying there were some questions and stuff that were out there that we want to make sure that we want to address, or those now would be a good time to try to take on some of those, because I'm really about to shift gears and go into the details of what you need to do to navigate your career transition.
That's perfect. We've had a few different questions, but the bottom line, they're all asking things like, for example, what do you do when a company is not posting jobs, on which they're in the right place to hear that answer.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're trying to get into a company that's not posting jobs, or for example, hospitals or places that are hiring, but they're very secretive. They're not divulging
Yeah.
any information. How do you find your way in? The other piece to this is, what about if you don't have any hands-on training, like for example in IT, but you're
Yeah.
trained through your training here at school and your
Yeah.
program. So
No
how do
doubt.
you marry that? How do you show
Right.
them your value when you don't have any hands-on just yet?
Right. I've got, by the way, we'll address those briefly here. Those are great questions, and those are the right questions, by the way, or the right style of question, which is, what do I do to move forward, right? I mean, those are all the attentions on
Mhm.
what do I do to move forward. So congratulations, that's a great mindset to have. And we'll go into some more detail later on, but here's the thing. So I think that when you talk about, somebody mentioned somebody about, a job, things being secretive inside of companies. I think it's a lot less about it being secretive than it is everybody's just busy and they're overwhelmed and they don't have time to communicate about it. What it's always going to come down to, always in any situation, in any industry, in any situation, which is reaching out, identifying the people who have the kinds of problems that you solve, reaching out to those people who have the kinds of problems that you solve, and establishing a connection with them. And then find a way to engage in a conversation with them. And I'm not suggesting this is easy. I make my living doing this, right? I mean, it's a lot of work. But finding a way to engage in a conversation with them. And by the way to engage in a conversation with them, I already described it in some sense earlier, because what I was talking about is James, who reached out to me recently, who was a past individual I was working with earlier part of this year with respect to an opportunity that he didn't get. But he had reached out to me saying, hey, remember me? I solved these kinds of problems. And oh, by the way, what could I do to help you? I remember him now, right? I'm interested in him. He's just that kind of person. He's looking for an opportunity to help people. And that's just, that's innately who he is. He's not playing any games. But, he doesn't understand how big of a difference that makes. Um, I've had one of those messages in the last few weeks. I've had 100 messages saying, hey, I'm looking for a job. Would you review my resume? Can we set a time to talk? And it's just like, no, we can't. Like, why would I do that? I mean, I haven't got the time to do that. So my point really in answering that question is I'll show you. And when we go into effective job search strategies, which is another webinar we do, and leveraging LinkedIn, I'll show you a lot of the detailed techniques, but I'll show you in a little while the basics of it, which is identify the people who have the problems that you solve, have a compelling story that you're going to engage in some kind of an attractive outreach to them, And the fundamental underlying principle of that is that if you're engaging with people under the heading of finding people who you can help, things are going to go pretty well. So we'll get into some more detail on that later, but that's a great point. It's always about connecting with people. It's not about finding jobs. It's about finding people who need your help, right? The second question that you had, Leslie, remind me.
Was a little more about if you don't have any hands-on experience just
Oh,
yet,
yeah.
how do you show your value?
Yeah, I got a great story of that particular one coming up. But the truth is, first thing I want to shift your mindset, which is you do have hands-on experience doing it, right? You do have experience. People confuse getting paid for having experience. So it comes down to this. It isn't really about experience. When people are saying, anytime somebody's discriminating against you or selecting against you for something, like they're selecting, you believe that they're selecting against you because you don't have experience, or maybe you believe that they're selecting against you because you're too old, or maybe they're selecting against you for all kinds of reasons, right? Whatever it is, the notion is dig under that. What are they really selecting against, right? Let's just go with old for a second. Is it really because you're old, or what is it, right? If you dig under that one, I think the answer is, are you really just looking for something to coast out so you can retire? Do you really have the energy? Can you learn this new stuff? I mean, that's what's underneath it all, right? If you look at lack of experience, that really is nothing more than a manifestation called, can you prove that you can actually do this stuff? Why should I believe you? And wow, it feels risky, right? You feel risky. And so lack of experience, when somebody says that or you feel that, is really nothing more than someone saying, it feels high risk because I need to be certain that you're going to be able to perform the work that needs to be performed. And if I have somebody who has a proven track record of having performed the work before, they are lower risk than you are. So you've got to find some ways of overcoming that risk. The short answer on one of the things that helps a lot, particularly in IT and some of the places where there are certifications, is that people understand that you can't get certifications without knowing something about what it is that you're doing. I'm not suggesting that once you get something, some experience, that your job search won't be easier, but the millions of people who have made the transition into the same field as you're transitioning to in the past all made the leap over that hurdle. And it's about knowing that, one, you have experience from the training that you got, and number two, it's really about proving your ability to be able to do the work. That's what people mean when they say lack of experience is, I don't feel comfortable that you've proved to me that you can actually do the work, right? All right, cool. Are we good?
That's great. Thank you. Yes.
Yep. All right. So let's get into the meat of the matter. So what I wanted to do, hopefully, is kind of lay out the context for you of kind of what's going on and what's happening. And if I could summarize everything that I said in this first section, which is, regardless of the pandemic, regardless of unemployment, regardless of your age, regardless of your experience, regardless of any of those things that you might be curious about, what you need to do doesn't change based upon the answer to any of those questions you might be asking, right? In any of the, what's the problem? I mean, the answer is a question called, how do I get a hold of people? That's a good question, right? But all the other niggling questions and the doubts and those, why do we have that snarky little voice in the back of our head that tells us nasty, ugly, horrible things, right? I don't know. But I think the one thing that I do know that can help overcome those kinds of things and those doubts and those fears is to be able to take action and to know what action to take. So let's go. Let's talk about what actions you can take. So the number one, or the first action that you can take, and if you are currently a student or already a graduate, you already took this step, so congratulations on it, which is, but I want you to stick with the decision, which is, you have to decide where you're going. You have to decide what career makes sense for you. You decide what you do. If you are beginning to think maybe you're open to lots of possibilities, or if you have friends or colleagues or family who are in the mode of looking for a new opportunity, one of the things that I can tell you that is without question limiting, which is this notion of being open, right? Being open to possibilities limits your options. And I think that seems intuitively backward, but it's really simple to explain why, which is, if I am hiring inside sales professionals, and I have a set of 5 people who say, I love sales, I love the game of sales, I'm an inside sales professional, and that's what I do, right? And I have another 5 people who I've talked to through the interview process that I think would be pretty good at inside sales, but they're like, yeah, I mean, I'm open to things. Inside sales would be fine, but customer service too, or any administrative role or what have you. Which set are you hiring from? I know which set I'm hiring from. I'm hiring for the set of people who are crystal clear on what it is, because clarity around your motivations, clarity around your drive, clarity around what matters to you is not only attractive, but it builds trust. Let me tell you a quick story of how important this is. I have a million of them, but a quick one is this, that I had a candidate about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. This one just stands out to me so much. It was a very senior level position. This person was in the semiconductor industry. They had been on the operations side of things, in other words, the engineering side of things inside of a semiconductor company. And about 5 years previously, they'd switched over into HR because they were really good at leading teams and they needed somebody in HR. So I had presented them and was working with them on a very senior level HR role inside of a significant semiconductor company here in Austin, Texas. There's not that many of them anymore, but it was a really significant opportunity. And I had coached this individual all the way through, which is, hey, no one's going to love it if you're both open to an operations job as well as an HR job. So you need to decide, and you need to tell me, oh yeah, I really want an HR job. And it was all the way through. He had an interview with the CEO of the company, and the CEO said, hey, I'm just curious, if we had an operations job, I mean, is that something you'd be interested in as well? He said, yeah, I'd be happy to do operations. Well, whatever you guys need is really what's important to me. And the CEO called me afterwards and said, you know what? I'm not sure that he really wants to be in HR. He said he'd be interested in operations jobs as well. So we're going to pass. Whoa, right? I mean, are you kidding me? Um, that cost me a lot of money and cost that individual the job. That's how important it is. So how can you expect somebody else to decide for you, right? So you decide. And if you're waffling ever on what it is you need to do, just let me just put it this way. If I made my living because every one of you on this call got hired, then I want you to pick the one thing, and I want you to decide, because my chance of getting paid goes up significantly when you're all really clear about the kind of role that makes the most sense for you, the kinds of problems that you solve, and what it is that you want to accomplish. And since my chance of getting paid goes up, your chance of getting hired goes up. So you decide and be crystal clear. You're less attractive to people who are clear. And if you can't decide what it is you're going to do next, and what you're great at, and what motivates you, and what drives you, and where you thrive, and the kind of work that is exciting to you, how do you expect somebody else to do it, right? They can't. It's inappropriate to even ask them to ask. This is a huge problem, by the way, a huge problem that people have. All right. In fact, one final comment is, sometimes people say, well, I mean, what harm can it cause to be open to possibility? And like, lots of harm, lots of harm. So stick with it. Be clear on what it is you want to do. That will work out so much better. This is a marathon, not a sprint. All right. So here's the thing, right? It's all about just planning your next step. Sometimes people don't know. They're like, hey, well, I don't know what I want to do. It's just like, okay, cool. I'm not a big fan of the follow your passion notions. Go find your passion and go take these tests that tells you what your affinities are and where you really, I mean, maybe your passion is fishing, and that's awesome. I mean, if people will pay you to be a fishing guide, that's good. But I think that it's not about your passion. I think it's really a lot more practical than that. It might be about what you're curious about, but it's as simple as this. Like, where are you now? How did you get there? Where do you want to be? And how are you going to get there? Like, make an actual plan. I mean, there's nothing about your passion implies you got emotion about it. I mean, I do love recruiting. I think it's fun, but I tell you what, if I was financially independent, I probably wouldn't be doing it. But I like it. I'm curious about it. It's a great thing to do. It's meaningful, but is it my passion? I think I've got other things that are my passion, right? But I'm very curious about it, right? So here's the thing, right? And I'm going to show you a few ways to look at a talent market search. But here's what it comes down to. And a lot of you you've already made this leap, so I probably ought to not belabor this point, because if you're already in a training program or graduated from one, you already figured out that you need to fill the gaps in your skills. That certifications will raise your pay by 50% or more. And there is stimulus money out there, by the way, for training, right? There is some stimulus money out there. It's still kind of a little bit foggy as to exactly how it works, but there is going to be hundreds of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars going into retraining programs, right? All right. Here's the thing. Some jobs certainly are really better than others. They really are. and job search is a very valuable skill. So my point in this is that getting clear and deciding on what you're going to do is this combination of your training and your certifications and your skills, and then your job search skill, right? The job search skill that you got, and then doing great work, a strong work ethic, doing high quality work, learning more, being easy to work with. I have a really live example of this right now, which is a gentleman who was hired by one of my clients a couple of months ago has just been a problem, right? He's just a pain in the butt to work with. Nobody likes being around him. He's not doing high quality work. It's just difficult, right? And yeah, today is his last day. Surprising, right? That's an extreme example, but what you do once you join the job matters, and it's interesting. I would say, because I've been in business so long and in employment so long and seen so much of it going on, I would say that probably significantly less than 50%, probably even more like 60 or 70% of people really don't give it their all at work. And all I know is if you don't give it your all, how can you expect anything? I have people all the time say, well, I've been there for 10 years. What difference does being there for 10 years make? Really? I mean, really? We were supposed to reward you just for the time you spent? How about the work that you do and getting things done and working hard and being part of the team? So, a big part of your career transition is being able to demonstrate that strong work ethic and your ability to do and your motivation around doing high quality work and being very easy to work with. So, plan your career, get the training and certifications, take on some job search skills, which is you're doing right now, and then have focus on doing great work. Because if you do those things, then you get control over not just landing a job, you get control over the future of your career, right? And how you're going to move through your career. All right, so item number one, I think we've spent enough time on that, which is decide what problems you solve, decide the roles that make sense for you, plan your path forward in that particular profession, fill in the gaps in your training, know how to do an effective job search, do great work while you're there, and repeat, right? And repeat. This is the pattern of the people who are most successful in their careers, quite frankly, right? That's the pattern. The next thing though is that, and by the way, are we all good, Leslie? Questions, comments, anything?
No, we are. We're okay. Actually, this is sort of a next take. We just got this question on your resume. Should you use the New Horizons training as a practical experience?
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
practical
yeah, for
experience.
sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
for sure.
One thing I do want to add though to what you're talking about is um, the planning piece does take a little bit of time and research and effort.
Oh
That
yeah.
the jack of all trades piece is what you're saying that just doesn't work. Absolutely. So I talked to
Oh,
someone just yesterday who is very clear. The way you described is exactly what she's doing. And so, knowledge is power, especially in this phase.
yeah. Isn't it interesting? And the only reason why I really know this is it's been beaten into me in the last 20 years, and I've seen so many examples of it, and I don't know how to explain why this is, but it just is, which is, the old adage about the round hole square peg. But I'm going to change it a little bit, which is if what the hiring organization is looking for is that, right? They're looking for you to be that kind of round hole. Even if you cover everything to do with that round hole, but you're more, people want to think that, oh, I'm everything about that round hole, but I'm a whole lot more. They want to think that that's going to be better. It's not better, right? If I look at the number of people who you want to be the shape and size of the hole and maybe just a little bit more, those people get hired a lot. The people who are this size and that shape and are a lot more don't, right? And I think the reason why is people are there's a you may have heard it or may not have heard it before, but certainly in my industry there's a saying that pardon me, A players hire A players, B players hire C players. And what that means is that there are a lot of B players out there. And as hiring managers, B players are afraid to hire people who are, more than the limiting circle that they want somebody to be because they feel threatened by it is one of the reasons. Another reason is they think people won't be unsatisfied. So if it turns out that the role that you're talking to somebody and you're interested in is this size and this shape, but you're a whole lot more than that, I'd suggest you shrink yourself back down to look like the circle, right? And that's a little unfortunate, but that's the reality of the situation. Once you land the job and once you're inside, there will be lots of opportunity for appreciating the fact that you can go beyond that. I've got a candidate who's having a conversation at 12:30 Central Time today about a senior product manager job, and he's way overqualified for the senior product manager job. But he's very interested in the company. He knows he can grow from inside. So we've talked about a lot. He's going to stay inside of the circle. We're not going to talk about all the stuff that's outside of the circle because he brings so much more value to the table. They're probably, are they going to hire him? There's a good chance that he's going to end up being hired into a role that he's quote unquote way overqualified for. And I promise you, they would not hire him if they knew everything about him. And I'm helping him shrink his story down to where it actually fits. All right. Which gets us to item number 2. So be very clear on the role, be very clear on what makes sense for you, be very clear on the problems that you solve and the directions that you're going and everything else. And then second thing is number 2, which is have a compelling story, right? Because here's the thing, landing a job, joining a new team, getting paid, doing work that matters, creating economy, right? Finding a job, if you will. I still hate the phrase find a job. But it's not about you. It's about your ability to solve the problem, right? It's not about you. It's about your ability to solve the problem and to be a hard worker and to be a member of the team. The guy who just got fired this morning because the head of HR just texted me and got fired this morning wasn't playing the game right? So here's the thing. When you are reaching out into the world and you're clear about what it is that you need to do, it's very helpful to have a compelling story about why that makes sense, why it's motivating to you, why you're going to be great at it, why you do have the skills, all of those kinds of things. Because if I can't paint this mental picture in your mind of who I am, what I do, and why I'm excited about it, and help you understand that I will do everything that it takes to be successful. And oh, by the way, I do have the skills and the ability to do this work. Why in the world would I expect you to hire me? I mean, I think your story needs to be so compelling that if you went into an interview and no one was going to ask you any questions. In fact, the way I think interviews ought to go down is I ought to be able to tell you a whole lot about the job, not just a job description, but here's what you're going to do. And I ought to be able to just say, all right, tell me your story. And you ought to be able to tell me a story without me asking any questions whatsoever. I go, dang, at the end of the story, wow, that's really cool. I mean, I can't wait to work with you, right? It's your responsibility to paint a mental picture in the mind of the other person with regard to you being successful in the future. If you think that going into an interview, and this isn't just about an interview, but if you think that going into an interview is about a passive thing where people are going to ask you questions and you're going to answer the questions and they're going to decide on you, I'm saying you have a lot more control over it than that. Most interviewers don't really know what they're doing. They don't know what questions to ask. And the fact is, if you have a great, compelling story and you can actually participate in the conversation, things will go so much better for you. You are responsible for painting a mental picture in the other person's mind that shows you being successful solving the problems that they have in the future, because you're not hired for your past. You're hired for your future potential. And I don't think many people are aware of that. Even the hiring organizations and the interviewers, they're not aware of that. I mean, I am, but it's just because I pay attention to this stuff, right? And it just so happens that the tool that we most often use to determine whether you're likely to be successful in the future or not is an evaluation of your past, which gets back to that question of what do you do when you don't have experience? I'll show you in a minute how to craft a compelling story. And we go into this in detail in the Resumes That Rock webinar that we do. But you have to be great at responding to this question or this statement. So tell me about yourself, right? So let's talk about that just a little bit. So here's the thing. To a hiring manager, this is the perfect world, right? Somebody in the past, they've been doing exactly this thing, increasing levels of responsibility, this nice straight line. Here's the day-to-day that they're hiring them. They're hiring them because they see this person's going to be wildly successful in this rock star here in the future. Bang, this is what hiring managers want. Right? That's what they want. It's almost never what they get, right? It's almost never what they get. In fact, not great recruiters have this weird habit of asking somebody about their ideal candidate. And always, why do you want to ask a hiring manager about the ideal candidate? That sets unrealistic expectations. That never happens. Here's what really happens is that most of us have these kind of weird eclectic backgrounds. I appreciate that. I think that it makes you more interesting. Very few people have this really nice straight and narrow path that they've been on. I mean, there are exceptions. I mean, people who are specialists in medicine and things like that. I mean, it's taken them a long time. So there are those people, but the majority of us have a history and a career history that looks a lot more like this. There's that little kink, and then this thing happened over there, and then you got laid off, and then there was that other thing, and you thought it would be fun to sell insurance for a while. And like our backgrounds are a little bit eclectic. You know, I started my career as a software engineer, and then I moved into the IT side of things, and then I moved into recruiting, right? I mean, my background is a little bit all over the place, but if somebody just looked at my background, right, they would say, well, this doesn't make any sense. But here's what you got to do. If your background looks like this, by the way, and your resume looks like that, and people talk to you about your past and you tell them about your past like this, you're expecting the other person to figure out how to make sense of all of that. And that's unfair. They can't do it. They can't do it. You're asking too much of them. It's your responsibility to do that. And what you've got to do is you've got to find a way of taking all the stuff that happened in your past and drawing this much smoother curve so that somebody can see, you know, they can see your past, they can put their past in context because they want to see it. And they still need to be able to, you need to paint this mental picture of this clear, straight line of how you're going to be successful in the future. And bang, that's when you get hired, especially in career transition, because the truth is, if you have this kind of a path, you're not called in career transition. If you have this kind of a path, you are, and it's your responsibility to clean it up so that somebody can now say, oh, that makes sense, right? That makes sense. Yeah, so it's your job to do that. Let me share with you a little bit about how to go about doing that. So it's really as simple as this. First, you got to decide where you're going. That's one of the problems with being open to lots of things, because if you're open to lots of things and you have a past that's all this, you know, all over the place, essentially what you're doing when you're going to market, and a lot of your friends are doing this, and hopefully you won't do it anymore, is you're kind of going, hey, you know, I'm this box of tools, right? See these box of tools? I got a hammer in here and a saw, and I got some kitchen shears and some sandpaper, and I got some laundry detergent. I got all kind of stuff in here. I mean, what can you do with this? Nobody wants to hire somebody like that. And all the time you have people with an eclectic background who are open to possibilities, and what they don't realize is they're going to market essentially saying, hey, I'm a box of stuff. What can you do with this stuff? Doesn't work so well. It all comes down to decide where you're going, get really clear about it, craft your compelling story of the future, and then align your past with the future. And if you're not clear on where you're going, it's awfully hard to align your past with your future, right? It is. So let's talk about how to do that. And we dive into this in detail in a couple of sessions. One is resumes that rock, and another one is effective job search strategy. We do this in a number of different places, but we have this little paint by numbers outline for crafting a compelling career story. And it goes something like this. I'm not going to belabor this right now. We just don't have the time in this particular session, but I am a blank and a blank. In my case, you know, I'm a recruiting leader and a career strategist with this thing that makes me unique, with significant experience in small to medium high-tech companies, right? That's mine. I help these kinds of businesses or these kinds of person types. I help busy hiring managers, I help HR professionals, and I help small to medium size, high growth technology companies. That's who I help. You might help somebody different. Solve problems like, right? Mine is solve problems called hire better than the competition. Ensure that you have a consistent ability to hire people who are better than your existing team, right? And ensure that you have, you know, a high quality hiring, you know, becomes part of your culture, right? And notice that I didn't talk about any of the details of what it means to do recruiting. I just talked about as a result. What are the results? What are the outcomes? So I create outcomes like this, that, and another. My strengths include, in my case, my strengths include running recruiting teams, putting together really strong sourcing strategies, enabling companies to create an orchestrated hiring process that's going to keep the most high performance candidates engaged, negotiating and closing offers in such a way that we're able to bring the people on board who we really want. And then, you know, I could go down a list of the strengths. And what I am motivated to do is I'm motivated to help companies who are highly competitive hire more than their fair share of top performers, right? So that's my compelling story. You can use this framework to create a compelling story, and notice that this compelling story doesn't say anything about the past, right? It doesn't say anything about the past. And it needs to be at the top of your resume. It needs to be the first things that come out of your mouth. This needs to be your positioning statement, right? And regardless of whether you have quote unquote experience, in other words, regardless of whether you've been paid to do this work before, if you can't look, someone in the eye, right? If you can't look them in the eye and say, let's say you're transitioning in IT. If you can't look someone in the eye and say, hey, I can solve IT problems at the level that you need someone to solve IT problems. If you can't say that, why would someone hire you? So the truth is that if you're a nurse transitioning into IT, that's awesome. That's really good. But you being a nurse transitioning into IT doesn't make me want to hire you more. You being an IT professional does. So what you did in the past when you're in career transition, saying, well, I was this, and let me tell you stories about what I did about that, and I'm now transitioning this to, isn't your best positioning. Something like this is your best positioning. Let me tell you a quick story on how much this matters. Wow, how many years now? It's been about 3, I suppose. I'll try to make this story short. Some of you may have heard it before if you've been in some of my things. I have a few favorite stories. This individual had applied for a job as a software user interface quality assurance tester, and their background had been in the military. They had been in, they'd first started out in welding. They were really good. They got into TIG welding, which apparently is like really, really fine welding. They then got into aircraft doing the wings and the welding on the welds, and then they got into aircraft mechanic systems and the rest. Following the military, they went into manufacturing for equipment and parts and things like that that were going into primarily fighter aircraft, but some others as well. And they were on the testing side of things, testing bolts and x-raying welds and filling out these really complex forms with respect to OSHA and FAA and everything else that they had to do to make sure that these really critical parts were in good shape. And this person's resume was littered with the kinds of x-ray machines that they use and the torque, and talked all about the airplanes. I mean, all of that kind of stuff, right? And so, when someone saw their resume with regard to that, with regard to a user interface QA position, they were bounced immediately. I mean, are you kidding me? I will say, luckily, I was involved because this person ended up being a great hire, because really what it was is their attention to detail was extreme. They used a lot of high-tech computing equipment. I mean, they were so well positioned for this, but the hiring manager couldn't see it. The hiring manager couldn't see it. So what I did was I just used this framework, and I'm going to show you. And what I did was I crafted this person's compelling story. I didn't do it at the time, but I did it right now just to use it as an example. So imagine this is a person who was out of the military. They've been in manufacturing for a while. They're trying to move into the software world, and this is their compelling story. I'm a quality assurance professional and software specialist with a track record of 99.9% compliance in highly regulated environments. All absolutely true. I help software and technology teams ensure that QA tests are accurate, quality is never compromised, and the results are thoroughly documented according to regulations. My strengths include relentless attention to detail, thorough and complete testing of repetitive tasks, and the ability to quickly learn and adapt to new software and testing tools. I thrive in an environment where complex QA ensures the success of my team, our company, and the clients and end users. If you were hiring somebody for a software user interface QA team, would you be interested in talking to this person? I think so, right? And notice the secret in this compelling story is it's painting a mental picture in the mind of the other individual as someone who's going to be wildly successful in this role going forward. And since your resume summary is the first thing that people read, your LinkedIn summary is the first thing they read. When somebody first says, hey, so tell me a little bit about yourself, it's all of that. Confirmation bias creeps in. And now when somebody reads this and they go, whoa, this sounds a lot like the person I want to hire. Now, when they start looking at their background, they can say, oh, I can see how so they're now set up to look for reasons to like this person. On their resume in this particular case, it said, I do welding and I do this and I was aircraft mechanic and I do these parts, and they couldn't see it at all. My point is that it's your job to paint this picture in someone's mind of you being successful in the role that you're transitioning into. And in that compelling story, when you're painting that picture, it doesn't help you to talk much about your past. It helps you to talk about your future. And I'll go back to one point earlier, which is people will say, yeah, but I'm not an IT professional yet. So it's like, well, if you don't believe that you are, why is anybody else going to believe that you are? And if they don't believe that you are, why would they hire you? I mean, of course you are. If you went through one of the training programs and you earned your certifications and the rest, you are an IT professional. You just haven't been paid for it yet. And whoever said they're getting paid for something, I mean, how many great athletes have never been paid to be an athlete? I think the majority of them. That doesn't mean that they're not great athletes, right? All right. Let's see how we're doing. Questions, comments. I hope this is useful to you guys. The reason why I'm bringing all this stuff up is that I know what works. I see it every single day. And if you're in career transition, it really does come down to decide exactly where it is you're going, create a compelling story. What the compelling story looks like is that see this green squiggly line? We haven't gotten there yet. The compelling story is right here, right? It's grounded in today. And it's all about that, right? It's all about that. And if you can't tell that story, you're expecting somebody else to create that story for you in their mind, and they can't. It's just too much to ask, right? It's too much to ask, but you can do it.
Yeah.
What do you
Well,
think,
only
Leslie?
you can tell your, what I tell people is only you can tell your story the best. I mean,
Yeah,
we as career advisors are here to guide you and sort of, tell you this is the flow, this is how it should look, but it's their story, really.
yeah. In fact, you're absolutely right. Thank you for bringing that up because it reminds me. Um, I, as a hiring professional, and Leslie and I are on opposite sides of the table, right? She's there to support you as individuals moving into your career and through your career transition. I am too, but only in this context because I like it. But mostly with the way that I get paid is I'm on the other side of the equation. I'm inside of the companies, right? And this is why we work so well together. It's because I've got kind of this view of the other side of things. Here's what I can tell you is I've had parents reach out to me before, trying to help their kids get a job. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, are you kidding me? I might hire you, but I'm not hiring your kid. I've had spouses reach out to me trying to help their spouse get a job. Are you kidding me? Really? I mean, really? I've had people all the time. I have people who are career counselors. Not on, it's not unusual that they reach out to me on behalf of their clients and say, hey Gary, I have somebody who's doing this kind of stuff and all that. I mean, can I send you the resume? I'm always like, yeah, but I mean, why aren't they reaching out to me? Because here's the deal. Hiring is a whole series of micro decisions, not just one big decision. And what I know is that if you don't have the ability to craft your own story, if you don't have your ability to reach out to me, if you don't have the ability to represent yourself, I don't know. I don't think that works very well. So no one, you should not expect anyone else to find you a job because they can't, because the world doesn't respond very well to that. And as somebody who makes their living because people get hired, or because my clients hire people, it is absolutely not in anyone's best interest that someone else reaches out on their behalf, because me and every other single recruiter that I know just go, you know what, you just told me something important about that person by reaching out on their behalf, which is they hadn't even got the wherewithal to reach out on their own behalf. Are you kidding me? And so you can certainly use the services of the career services team to help guide you and support you and give you courage and whatever it is you need. But the onus is on you to tell your story, to do the outreach, to you decide. No one can run your job search for you. And as soon as you allow someone else to run your job search for you, yeah, it's not going to work so well, right? Just no one else, it's nobody else's job to do that. No one else can do it as good as you. That's the truth. All right. Anything else, Leslie, or is it time to move on to the next thing?
Well, we do have a couple of questions,
Okay,
but I
cool.
think that we can answer those later because you're kind of on a roll, and these are a little bit not quite on the subject, so
Okay.
we'll get to them.
All right, cool. So here's where we're at. Speaking of on the roll, we're really clear that we have to decide. And if you've been through the training program already, you already decided. Congratulations. If you waffle on that, don't. The certifications you got, the training that you got, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm guaranteeing you that IT and the professions that are in these training programs they got were picked out for a reason, because there's increasing need for those kinds of individuals. There's this weird little surge in this period of time where need for almost everything is a little lower right now, but as it comes back, those are going to continue to be, in administration and IT and medical billing and coding and all these different areas. They're intentionally selected because there's a growth opportunity in all of these things. So don't waffle. Like, stick to it, decide, get clear, because if you're trying to go transition, I'm just going to stick with IT because I think the majority of people are transitioning that. If you're trying to transition IT and you waffle and you go out into the world going, well, I don't know, the next thing you know, you're going to end up working a job that isn't in IT, and then it's a whole lot harder to transition back. So just decide and just be clear, and you can make it happen. You can. I see it happen like all the time. So decide, be really clear, and then tell your compelling story. And your compelling story is not grounded in your background. Your compelling story is your ability to paint a mental picture in the other person's mind of why you're going to be successful and why they should hire you. Because if you can't do that, how in the world are they going to do that? Just like nobody else can run your job search for you, the hiring manager can't figure out what to do with you if you look like a box of tools, right? Yeah, don't be a tool. All right, here's the thing. The other thing, so third thing is understand the market. And what I mean by understand the market, I'm going to show you how to do this a little bit, which is connect to the hiring manager, connect to the recruiter, connect to peers on LinkedIn, communicate directly, email, social, and phone. Like, understand the marketplace and work the marketplace. If you're going to execute an effective job search, let me tell you real quick what it isn't. Executing an effective job search and navigating a career transition is not called look for jobs online, apply for a job online, and wait. It's not that. Like, no, like, it's not that. That isn't likely to work. I mean, it'll work some, but it isn't very likely to work. It's your job to understand the marketplace. It's your job to find people. It's your job to reach out to them and communicate them to directly. And I do understand that most people don't know how to do it. So since I know that it must be the case that you want to do it, right? I think you want to do it. And if you don't want to do it before, you probably ought to want to do it now, because I'm telling you, this is how it works, right? If I were looking for a job, I probably wouldn't apply for a single job. I probably wouldn't. I am not suggesting that you don't apply for a job. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that this understand the market and this outreach program works so well that I probably wouldn't apply for a job. So, here's what it comes down to in terms of understanding the market, right? Which is, what are you good at? And if you just went through a training program, the idea is you probably are good at that. Well, what are you curious about? Well, you're probably curious about that, right? What careers have future growth? And again, a lot of you, we're in a unique situation because a lot of you on this call have already made these decisions, right? But this one, what jobs are in my area, may not be as clear to you, right? That might not be as clear to you. So let's talk about that. So what we want to know in the marketplace is, where and what roles and what companies are there plenty of jobs, where is income at least reasonably high, right? And high is relative, right? But where is income reasonably good for the types of roles that we're doing? Where are there likely promotion opportunities, stable employment, flexible schedule, things that matter to you, right? Understand the marketplace. And so the question is, how are you, how are you going to get there? So let me show you a couple of things. Would that be all right? Leslie, can I show you a couple of things?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, cool. So I won't spend much time on this. We're doing well on time, but I do want to show you a couple of things. So this is LinkedIn. This is my profile. You'll notice that this is my pre-COVID look. This is my without a beard. But my point in bringing you over to LinkedIn is that this is the best tool that you've got to understand the marketplace. And so here's what I can tell you about jobs, which is the majority of hires did not come from people applying for a job online. Let me say that again. The huge majority of hires had nothing to do with a person applying for a job online. In fact, the majority of hires are jobs that were never posted at all. They were never posted at all. So if your primary job search strategy is finding jobs online and applying for them online, then you're addressing less than half of all the hires that happen by definition, right? Well, how do those other hires happen? Well, sometimes it's an internal move. They move one person from one role to another role. Sometimes it's because somebody knew somebody. Sometimes it was an employee referral, which I guess is another variation on the theme of somebody knew somebody. Sometimes it's because they hire recruiters like me, and the majority of true recruiters that I know don't like to post jobs because we feel responsible for getting back to everybody who applies. Although I suspect people don't get back to you for the most of the jobs you apply to, and that's because they're just flat out too busy. Quick sidebar as to why they're too busy. Some of my friends who are recruiters at companies that don't recruit well, and then places like Indeed and all kinds of places like that. I mean, they'll have 35 to 40 positions that they're responsible for, sometimes as many as 60, which is ridiculous. And these days, if they post those jobs, let's just say 50 jobs, and they post those jobs are going to get conservatively 300, 350, 400 responses. So, let's just say 300. I'm going to get out my handy dandy calculator because I just flat out can't do math in my head anymore because I use the calculator all the time. I'm going to say 300 people per job times 50 jobs that some of the people I know. That's 15,000 applicants, right? They just can't. They can't. So that's the reason why most people never hear anything back on jobs. But let me show you how to do a quick talent market survey, right? So if you come to this tool and you come up here to the top and I click this search thing, pause that, I'll click the search up at the top. Mostly don't ever type up here, like mostly don't. What you want to do is you want to say what you're searching for. So I'm searching for people. So I'm going to do a little bit of a talent market survey right now. So let's say that the role that makes sense for me is I'm just going to go ahead and use Austin just because I know it better and I'll know these companies and the rest because you might know companies in your area, but I'm going to pick my area because it's easier for me to show you. There's that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this, see where it says all filters, and click on that. And so right here, here's the location, it says Austin, Texas, and I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to go to title. So let's say that the role that makes sense for me is system administrator, right? And just to do a quick talent market survey, which is how many people currently work in jobs where their title is system administrator in Austin, Texas. Dun, da, 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 da. There's 889 of them. That means there's actually more than that. They just have different titles than that. But 889 is a lot. That's plenty, right? You're kind of going, are there jobs? Yeah, there are jobs, right? 20 to 30% of those are going to turn over annually. So if you figure, what is that? Somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 to 300 hires are going to happen in any given year just because of turnover, right? So this is system administrator jobs in Austin, Texas. Now you do know that titles don't mean much, right? What's another title for system administrator? Sometimes they're called network engineer, sometimes they're help desk analyst, sometimes there's all kind of stuff. And so what I would do now is say, all right, what are other titles that people use? There's a couple of ways to find titles that people use. One is to go look at some of these individuals. Join us for leveraging LinkedIn. I'll show you a lot more about this particular tool. But I just want to show you, let's see what other titles these people have had. Come on, maybe. It's so slow. I'm going to shut down my camera. It helps. There you go. Dominic Petruno, system administrator at Pervasive Software. Dominic Petruno is coming up very slowly, so we're only going to use one example. Come on, Dominic. Has your internet gotten a lot slower since everybody's working from home? Mine has gone from I was running I had a blazing connection, right? I've got a fairly fast connection, but it was operating like 170 megabits per second, something like that. I was checking the other day, I was running like 9. It's crazy, right? All the Zoom bandwidth is sucking up everything.
Yes, it's quite rude. I find that myself.
Right? Oh my God, the traffic. I'd love to see the graphs on the traffic. Well, you know what, Dominic is coming up really slow, but what you could do to find other titles if you don't know them, and I kind of know them off the top of my head, right? System administrators, network engineer, software administrator, IT help desk, end user support, IT support help desk. There's a million different titles that are in and around the same thing. And so what you could do is you can actually go find people who are in that space and look at other titles that they've held. Even Michael Collins Bailey is not going to come up. Let's see if a Google job search, because I want to show you this. You know that Google has a job search engine, right? Maybe not, but it's good. I don't even have to spell it right. It'll fix it for me. When I say system administrator jobs in Austin, Texas, I'm going to click this blue banner that comes up right here, which is going to take me to the Google job search engine. And here you go. So if I click on title right here, it suggests other titles that are commonly used for this job: system administrator, network administrator, database administrator, systems engineer, Salesforce administrator, security administrator, right? IT specialist, IT consultant, help desk. So what you can do is pick one title. You could come here, you could look at other people, you can find other titles that are used, and go run searches and see how many people are currently employed in the kinds of roles that make sense for you. Here's the deal with respect to the talent market, which is, if you have friends or anyone who is in a space where you run a search and there's 5 people in your area who do that kind of work, yeah, that's gonna be a tough row to hoe. But here in Austin, Texas, as an example, with respect to IT administration type roles, there are thousands, right? If you added it all up, I've done it before, it's about 4,000 people who are on LinkedIn who are in those kinds of roles, who are in fairly junior related roles. So there's a ton of opportunity. I mean, a massive amount of opportunity. And so what it all comes down to is that when you're doing this, know the market, which is the section I'm trying to talk about. Understand the marketplace, which is, go find the people who already do that work, go count them. If there's hundreds or thousands, right, depending upon the size of the metropolitan area you're in, like, if you're in Austin and there are 50 people doing it, that's not many. If you're in Lincoln, Nebraska, 50 people doing it is a whole lot more than in Austin, or, the smaller the town. You got to take it into consideration. I mean, if your town is, 10,000 people and there's 50 people doing it, that's a lot, right? So the opportunity for you is a function of the number of opportunities in the addressable marketplace. Some roles are more adept for remote work than others. And so in terms of career transition, it's really important to understand the market, right? It's understand, where the jobs are, where the people are at, and, plan your path, your training, your certifications, and reach out to people. So here's the deal with regard to your path, right? Here's just one example of somebody who actually is a graduate of our program here, which is they had no previous IT experience. They got some CompTIA A+ certifications. This individual was about 5 years ago. I've been working with New Horizons now for over 10 years. It's crazy. But started in tier 1 help desk job, which was a significant pay grade step back for them, but they knew that they needed a transition. They did a great job on their tier 1 help desk. And also this person knew that they wanted to relocate from where they currently were, but they wanted to relocate in the IT space. So they stayed where they're at, took a tier 1 help desk job, making about 40% less than they had been before. Once they had some experience in that, they moved to tier 2, which is kind of that next level of detailed support, and they got a relocation into a tier 2 support job. When they were really successful in that tier 2 support job, one of the companies that they were supporting was this small company that they moved over and became director of IT for this small company that they were working with. In that small company, started implementing a voice over IP system and implementing some new technology. They brought in a consulting company, a managed services company, to help them with that. They worked so well with that managed services company that person established a relationship with them, and they then moved over under some period of time and became an engagement manager for that same IT services provider. This roadmap from here to here was about a 3-year roadmap. And they moved from income down here that was 40-ish or so $1,000 a year, $35,000 a year, to one that was about $120,000 a year right here inside of about a 3-year period of time. And a big reason why this happened for Mike was that he was really clear on what it was. So it wasn't just finding a job, it was defining the path, understanding the path. And the truth is, in his career transition, right, and another thing about navigating your transition is that if I just now am moving into IT and I just now got my certifications and I've never been paid for, no one's employed me before as an IT professional, one of the things that'll really help you is to say, you know what, I have goals and ambitions inside of the IT organization. I know that I'm going to earn my stripes. My ambitions are, if I work hard and I'm smart enough to do it and I stay focused on it, that, I may be able to become a director of IT or an engagement manager for an organization running a small team of 4 to 5, whatever your ambitions happen to be. But I do understand that not only do I have to pay my dues, but I'm really excited about starting here at the bottom and learning the ropes, because if I ever work my way to the point where I'm leading other people, if I didn't do their work before in the past, how could I possibly know how to lead them? So imagine how compelling that story is, because if I'm considering hiring someone into an entry-level role in IT, then one, if you're in career transition, it might be you're a mature individual and you've been in the work world a long time compared to a lot of other entry-level people. So I'm going to place a lot of value on that, because your life experience and your work experience, even if I hadn't been in IT, makes you interesting and valuable. And then two, you have a clear idea of where you're going, and you have a clear idea, because I might otherwise want to say, oh man, this, overqualified, or why would you be interested in this job? You've been a leader of people before, and the rest, and you kind of go, you explain it, which is, I'm transitioning, into IT. My goals and aspirations look like this. I recognize that to get there, not only do I have to pay my dues, but the things that I'm going to learn here are material to my ability to move forward in a path like that. You become very interesting to people when you can do that, like very interesting to people. So the better you can lay out your longer term path, the more interesting you become.
Hey,
So,
Gary,
right, yeah,
can I ask you something that's related to what you're just talking about?
I hope so,
Um,
yeah.
I've got someone who says that they notice they're in the business administration or administration professional program. So they're asking if you could potentially give examples regarding less network, less IT, and maybe something regarding project management outside of IT.
Oh, sure.
Similar example to kind of get them on the right path.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. So the first thing I'll say about project management is that's an interesting one. Project management is one of those things where it's clearly a skill, but it has to be applied to specific things. And so the very first thing that I'd suggest you do with regard to project management is project managing what? As an example, you know, none of my clients would hire you as a software development project manager if you have no experience in software development, right? They're not going to. It makes no sense, right? Because when somebody tells me they're a project manager, it's just like, well, okay, what does that even mean? So residential home construction project manager, IT software development project manager, marketing, and systems enablement project manager. So you project manage what? And so what you can probably do is reach into your past, reach into your curiosities, and narrow the world down, first of all, because opening up possibilities is not in your best interest in job search mode. Narrowing the world down into something that's very clear is in your best interest. So what are the things that you know? What are the things that you're curious about? Combine that together with the tons of companies and opportunities that are in your area. And instead of going to market looking for a job as a project manager, go to the market as a something project manager. That's number one with regard to project manager, because I'm not gonna ever hire you or place you as generic project manager. So get crystal clear on that particular one. So that's the first step. And then the question becomes, in this particular case, like with regard to your path is, I mean, where is it you want to go? How much money do you want to make? Do you really want to lead other people, or do you not? And if you think you want to lead other people, why? Right? Why? I think way too many people don't know why they want to lead other people. I can tell you that people are insane. And unless you're just drawn to leading a team of people, don't. Generally, you make more money and have more fun in life as an individual contributor than you do as a manager. Ask anybody who's been a manager. But whatever it is, figure out what's motivating to you in terms of income growth, in terms of your knowledge growth, in terms of your responsibilities to the company. And then what you can do is you can look at people who are already solving those problems, right? So if you aspire to be a running a PMO, which is a project management office. If you aspire to running a project management office, go find some people who run project management offices, right? And the way that you can do that is LinkedIn's running a little slow, so I'm not going to run this whole LinkedIn. Everything's running really slow right now. Where'd LinkedIn go? It's over here. So what you would do is you would go into all filters, and you wouldn't have to search in your particular area, because all we're looking for is the career path. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in the title PMO, and that's all. I'm looking for people who have the letters PMO in a job title in their jobs. And what I can do, PMO director, right? And now what I can do is I can go look at a bunch of these people who are PMO directors and find the common pattern in their career history. It won't be exactly the same, but you'll find a pattern if you go look at 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 of them. That's what I do when I'm sometimes trying to find somebody who's at a mid-level position, is I go see what the pattern is. And now that you have the pattern in place, you could even talk to some of these people. They may be the person who's hiring you as a project manager. You can say, hey, I was looking at your background. You know, the fact that you went through those steps is really inspiring to me, because, I would love to think that I'm going to earn my right to become project management office leader just like you, right? So I hope that answers the question, but I think that pattern is always the same, which is figure out the best next job that makes sense for you, figure out why you want to eventually be in some other place. Go find people who are in that current place, go find a bunch of them, look at what their pattern is, find the common pattern. And so now when you're in that interview with the PMO, I can say, hey, Shane, I was looking at your background. I see you went through those steps, this step, those other kinds of things. That's inspiring to me. I would love to think that I can earn the right to eventually have a role like you, because it matters to me, and this, that, and other, and these are the reasons why it matters. So therefore, this role as an entry-level project manager is so critical to me, because I'm so interested in learning. I'll work like a dog to make things happen. And, so there you go. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think
The
it did.
story, what's the story? Like, where are you at? Where are you going? Tell me where you're going. Because if you can tell a compelling story to people like Shane about where it is that you're going, people mostly want to help other people. And if they can see a way that they can help you, all the time I have hiring managers say, I'm really excited about XYZ person joining my team because they're really ambitious and I think that I can help them, I can mentor them. The best hiring managers I work with, the stories that they tell over and over and over, are the stories of the success of the people who are on their team. They want to help you.
Mhm.
It's easier for them to help you if you're clear about where you're going and you become more interesting and they trust you more. And just say that things will go much better for you if you can articulate your path.
Okay, I see. Okay, there is a part two to this, and it is something, it's related, I think. How do you apply the current skill that you're training for? And that was with regard to the project management or any of our programs. But I guess the question is, go ahead. Do you have a thought on that so far?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So it goes back to this, which is your compelling story, right? So what your job is that, this is you. You have this past that's, let's just say it may not be all chopped up like this. It may be a straight line in a different direction, but this is, your beginning of project management or wherever it is you're doing. And what you have to do is paint a very clear picture in the other person's mind of you being successful in the future. Now, see, they don't have a clear picture because this is what they're seeing. The hiring manager sees this and they're going, huh, really? Right? But step number one is really being able to tell this part of the story right there. And so what it comes down to is that when you're transitioning into some role, whether it be IT or administration or project management or anything else, know that you need to be able to explain not only your ability to do the work, but your motivation to do the work. Because the truth of the matter is, what inspires people is your story. What inspires people is your motivation. What builds trust with people is your drive, right? And once I see you motivated, once I see you driven, once I see it being really clear, right? As a recruiter, I'm kind of going, man, I got this person that's got energy around this, right? Now, all I need to know is, can you give me enough confidence that you have the ability to do this work? So what happens is if you have enough drive, ambition, motivation, energy, thrive, storytelling, all that, and you can paint that picture, then your skill set and your experience kind of becomes less important, right? I mean, I'm not saying that it's not important. I'm just saying that the person who doesn't have energy, drive, and motivation, but has some checklist of entry-level skills for some training that they just took and maybe a certification, okay, I mean, that's fine. They'll get jobs too eventually. But the person who's motivated and driven and who can articulate that and why it matters to you in your life and why you're going to work really hard, and then they want to make sure that the notion is, I want to work with Leslie. I want to work with you. I can't wait to work with you. Please help me understand that you can actually do this stuff because I need you to be able to do this stuff. I will forgive some of your lack of experience. I'll forgive some. I'll help you. You know, I can help you. Hiring managers all the time, I see them hire people that they're inspired to help, right? And so I can't hire you if you don't have any ability to do the work. But if I'm inspired by you, I'll let you get away with maybe not having as much expertise in the area that I want because I want to work with you and I'm willing to help you. Most people want to help other people. They really do. I mean, the news is full of people who don't want to help people, right? And people are really selfish and all kinds of stuff, but that's not most of us. I mean, most of us just wish all the rest of those people would stop, just stop. Man, how about we just get about our life and how about we make some things happen? And how about we make a difference in other people's lives? And that's the way that most people are.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Gary.
You're welcome. And by the way, the reason why I can say that is I talk to hundreds of people who I've never met before in my life every month. I talk to thousands of people a year, and I've been doing it for 20 some odd years, and I talk to them in the context of employment. And I guarantee you, most of them are very good, well-intentioned people who want to help. I mean, sure, there's a bunch of whatever you want to call them, out there in the world. They are, but whatever. Just ignore them. They're not most people. I mean, they're not. All the people that you see in the news and stuff these days, those aren't most people. I mean, most of us just want to help one another and be supportive of one another. And if you don't, please straighten yourself out too. All right. So let's talk about this. So here's where we're at. And again, we have plenty of time. I hope this stuff is helpful for you guys. Number one is be very clear on where you're going. You decide. You pick your direction. Number two is now be able to tell a compelling story about why that direction matters to you and why you're fired up and why you're motivated, right? Item number three is know the marketplace, know the people, be able to reach out to them, be able to contact them, know who they are, know where they're going, know the steps that it takes to get from where you're at to where you want to be, and go identify some of those people who are in those roles and find all the stages in between so that you can actually have a plan. Now you have a plan. You don't just have training and you don't have a plan. And I want to go back to something I said in the beginning is when you're in career transition, the skills training that you get, be it IT skills or project management skills or administrative skills or medical coding skills or whatever they are, those skills are necessary to open the first door. Once you've opened the first door, none of that stuff matters anymore. I mean, of course it matters, but what matters now is now you're in. After that part, and even getting that one, the skills to be motivated, have these plans, have a compelling story, all that, that's what it's going to take to help you be successful in your career and change jobs and do all that kind of stuff and navigate and join us for effective job search strategies and all that. And we go into that in some detail about even how to know when it makes sense to change companies as opposed to change departments and all of that. But these skills and this ability to engage with other people in a way that it isn't about you finding a job, but it is about you finding other people you can help and expressing why it matters to you. That's in the end going to be more valuable to you than the skills training that you're getting. And Leslie's team, so you've got your skills trainers and the companies that you're working with, your IT trainers, your admin trainers, and your project management trainers and all that. They're awesome. And I think not enough people avail themselves of the career services team because the career services team can support you with something that's going to support your success in your life and your career, even if you do another career transition. The stuff you can learn through that is long-term probably more valuable. All right, and of course I could say that because that's the part of the business that I'm in. Resumes that rock. So number 4, I mean, you really ought to have a resume that rocks. Join us for Resumes that Rock. We could spend hours on this. So I'm not going to go into it in very much detail, but here's the deal. the summary of your resume needs to be about your future. The summary of your resume needs to be your compelling story. That's, if we stopped right there, that's the number one thing that most of you don't have. It's the number one thing that most resumes don't have. What most resumes have is a summary, as a short version of their work history. Like, what's the point? The whole thing's only 2 or 3 pages long anyway. So, I mean, what's the point of having a short version of a short resume? That's just silly. So your summary needs to be about the future, and that's your chance on paper, because that piece of paper is your proxy, right? That is your stand-in. And so just like if you had the opportunity, and let's say that I introduce you to somebody, it was in the context of a project management job, and I said, hey, Leslie, meet Bob. Bob, runs the PM over at so-and-so. Leslie, tell yourself a little bit about Bob. I want you to open up with your compelling story, right? That's what they want to know. What most people do in their resume summary is anything but that. So your resume that rocks is, the summary is about your future. That's number one. The other thing about a resume that rocks that I think is really unique, and not many people understand this, I don't think, or talk about it, which is your resume needs to tell a story from the bottom up that naturally leads to your next job. You probably don't know, and a whole lot of recruiters aren't trained this anymore, but a lot of the best recruiters who I know, we read resumes from the bottom up. I don't start at the top of your resume, I start at the bottom, and I want to know your story. And what happens is that if I can see your story, then it makes sense, right? I can say, oh, that makes sense. What most resumes are when you get into the work history is this disjoint set of jobs where people are listing a set of tasks that they performed. And mostly what people have on their past jobs is they have basically a short job description. It'll say, I was a project manager. I kept projects on project and schedule and budget on budget. And it's like, well, of course, you told me you're a project manager. I mean, I already knew that. Somebody will say, I was a senior accountant. I was responsible for accounts receivable. I was responsible for account. And I'm like, of course you were. I mean, you're a senior accountant. I already knew that. Are you any good at it, or did you suck at being a senior accountant? I mean, tell me something that I don't know. So most resumes are short versions of a boring background. Their background is a list of tasks that people performed, and it doesn't tell a story at all. So the good news is you can make your resume stand out just by making it not horrible, right? Most of them are horrible. So the summary is about your future. Your resume needs to tell a story from the bottom up. And the way that, if it was me, the way that I would craft a resume, we talk about this in Resumes that Rock, is literally tell your story. It's really interesting. People have a hard time doing it on paper, but I say, look, just set it all aside. Just tell me your story. And I could do that with Leslie, and in 20 or 30 minutes, she could tell me her whole story. Well, I went to high school and I did this stuff and I did these other things. I went to college and my first job was that. And they tell me a story. And so just tell the story, and then what you do is flip the story over. You compress it down into just jobs and the rest, but tell your story in your resume, right? Only include things that are relevant. And what I mean by that is that that individual I was talking about who was moving into user interface QA inside of a software company, they were talking about the welding inspecting machines that they did. That's irrelevant. They were talking about torque on bolts. That was irrelevant. I was working with someone one time who was transitioning into being a school teacher, and they had been in veterinary clinics before, and what they were talking about was like blood and feces samples and stuff. Like, no, right? I hope you don't have to have blood and feces samples as a high school teacher. Maybe you do, but I hope you don't. But my point is that that list of tasks and the details of what you did are generally irrelevant. What it all comes down to is be very clear on where you're going, tell the compelling story, and then find the aspects of what you did in the past that are actually relevant. Let me give you one for me. So in the beginning of my career, I was a software engineer, but I did hire some people. I did manage a team of 5 people. I did. And so despite the fact that I spent 98% of my time writing software, if I had a resume and I was talking about that role, the only thing that I would say is I probably wouldn't even say software engineer. I would change my title to team lead. And I would say, hired 5 people onto my team, performed salary actions, provided support to my entire team. And, that's what I would talk about, because it's the only thing relevant to what I do today. If I talked about ADA and software and all that kind of stuff, it's irrelevant. So only include things that are relevant. Less really is more. Your work history and your training are relevant. If you're attending a training program right now, I would literally put that in my work history, I call it professional history. or, you know, and so right up at the top of your professional history, if you're in career transition, then you could have a thing that says, hey, laid off from this company for these kinds of, along with all that kind of stuff. And then boom, the thing that's up at the top is the fact that you're attending a training program. I mean, that is your professional, that's part of your professional history. I mean, put it right there. It certainly goes in the education section, but it's part of your story. Put it in your story. Same thing with gaps in your resume. So here's what it comes down to. A resume that rocks is, the simple version is, I could read it from the bottom to the top, and it would tell a natural story, a progression, and the rest up to the summary. The summary is going to tell me where it is you're going, and overall I can say, oh, okay, that makes sense. I see how you got from where you were to where you're going, and it makes sense that that's the direction you're going into now. So leave out everything that doesn't make sense, right? Dispel one myth, which is, you ever heard the myth that resumes should be no more than 2 pages long? I mean, that's a that's one of my favorite stupid myths about recruiting and hiring. So some of you have seen this before, probably, if you've been in any of my stuff, but I'll show you again. So let me show you the reason why that's ridiculous, right? So I'm looking at your resume, I'm kind of going, oh, okay, yeah, oh, awesome. So page number 2, oh, yeah, okay, that's really cool. Oh, they went to 3 pages, they're out. That would never happen. I mean, that's just stupid, right? Here's the deal. If your resume is getting to be more than 2 pages long, it's probably becoming boring and irrelevant. So the reason why people give you that advice is because they think somehow by giving you that advice, it's going to make your resume less boring and irrelevant. The only thing it's going to do is make it less boring and less relevant it's going to make it shorter, so it won't be boring and irrelevant for as long. But making it shorter doesn't make it more relevant, doesn't make it more interesting. A resume that rocks is interesting. It tells your story, right? Be human, right? It's all good. Number 5. This one's important. They're all important, but this one's important. I got an example to show you. Number 5 is, don't just apply for jobs online. Stop wasting your time researching companies. I see people all the time. I see these job clubs and I heard people go research companies and stuff like that. So, you know, the reason why that's a waste of time is you can spend hours researching companies, and if you never talk to anybody there, you never outreach to them, you never have a conversation with them, then that was an abject waste of your time. So stop researching companies. I mean, why in the world are you doing that? Doesn't make any sense to me. And oh, by the way, Glassdoor, take that stuff with a huge grain of salt. I know great companies that have horrible Glassdoor ratings. I know horrible companies that have great Glassdoor ratings, because they pay a company in India to write fake reviews. So don't trust that stuff very much, right? Take it with a massive grain of salt, by the way. You'd be better off just never go there. Just don't, right? Start researching people, find the people who do what you do, find the people who work for the people who you want to work for, find people who solve the problems that you solve, and the people who they work, go find the people, People hire people, companies don't hire people, people hire people. In fact, companies don't even exist, they're make-believe. You know, don't you realize that Dell does not exist? The only reason why Dell exists is because we believe it to exist. There's no such thing. I mean, the concept of a company is a totally abstract concept, just like the concept of money is a totally abstract concept. They don't really exist except for the fact that we believe that they do. So companies hire no one, people hire people. So go research people, go find people who you can help, go connect with people, and go communicate with people. And if you do that, now things are going to go really well for you, right? So stop researching companies and stop looking for jobs, and instead go research people and go find people who you can help, right? That's the thing that will make a big difference for you. And it's really simple to do, by the way. If LinkedIn was running faster, I would show you a quick example, but I'll show you real quick. It's as easy as this, right? So step number 1 is go find hiring managers, right? So if I were looking for an IT job in, let's say, name a city, Leslie.
Houston, Texas.
Thanks for picking a big one. I just say that just because there will be more people. Houston, Texas. All right, and what I want to do is I'm going to apply that. I'm going to go to all filters, and let's say that I am looking for a project management job. I already have PMO in there as the keyword for, it says keywords, but that was really, I put that into the resume, or into the title field. I put in PMO. There are 490 people in Houston, Texas who have the word PMO in their title. All of those people hire project managers. So PMO stands for Project Management Office. all 500 of these people hire project managers, and they know project managers, and they know companies that do project management. So you should go connect with every single one of these people. Go connect with every single one of them. And then after they accept your connection request, then you can send a message over to them. And the message you need to send to them is not, hey, I'm looking for a job. Do you have a job for me? Because you're begging Adrian G to say no. When you reach out to Adrian, you can say, hey, Adrian, I see that you have a project management office over at Avanan. Before that, you were doing those kinds of things. I'm fascinated with that. I'm transitioning into a role as that. I help solve this problem, that problem, the other. When the time is right, I would welcome the opportunity to say whether I might be able to help you and your team, be more successful in project management. Bam, and you're moving on to the next one. And so you would connect with every single one of these people, and then you more or less have a pretty much templated messages you're going to send out to everybody, which basically says, hey, Adrian, I see you. I see something about you. This is who I am. These are the problems that I solve, and this is what my motivations are. When the time is right, I would certainly welcome the opportunity to see whether or not I might be able to help you and your team be more successful. And what will happen is that at any given time, if you have 500 hiring managers out there, I promise you that turnover these days is about once every 3 years. And so that means if they have a team of 4 or 5, 6 people, at any given time, 15 to 20% of these hiring managers know that they're going to have to be hiring somebody, right? They already know they're going to have to hire somebody. And if you just say, hey, when the time is right, one of them is going to self-select, and they will say, yeah, I'd like to talk to you. One of them is just going to have gotten out of a meeting that just got chewed out because they hadn't gotten their hire done. They're going to get back to their desk, and serendipity is going to happen because your message is going to be in their inbox, right? So find those people, then go find peers, then go find recruiters, and go connect with as many people as you can possibly connect with, and message them, send messages out to them saying, hey, I see you, right? You have to say something about them so they know that they see you. These are the problems that I solve. And, I would, when the time is right, I would welcome a conversation to see if I might be able to help you. Right? See, it's so different than saying, I get them all the time, and says, hey, I'm looking for a job and I'm a project manager. Would you mind reviewing my resume and setting up a time? Maybe we can talk next week to see whether or not I might be of value to one of your clients. I'm gonna go, psh, no, right? You see the difference? It's massive, right? It's massive. All right, just a couple of things, and we'll be wrapped up. And any other questions and stuff, we can certainly address them. But most of the most important stuff we've already covered. So let's just skip that slide. I kind of already talked about that. Properly preparing for interviews. I'd say less than 5% of all the people I talk to are prepared for interviews. What this little graphic stands for is in the Unix world and some of the technology world, a exclamation point is referred to as a bang. A question mark is referred to question, and an asterisk is called a splat. All right, bang, question, splat. And so most interviews end in either a bang, a question, or a splat. The majority end in question. And what I mean by that is the majority end with the hiring manager going, I'm not sure, yeah, maybe, right? Bang is, whoa, are you kidding me? This person's awesome. That's rare. It's really rare. And splat, we don't want to talk about splat, right? Splat's just ugly. It was abject failure, right? So most of them aren't splats. The trick is, chances are your interviews are ending in question. And so the big thing to take your interview from question to bang, which is properly preparing for your interview. And it comes down to this: know the company, know their products, know their services, know the people who you're meeting, research them, know where they went to school, know their last 5 jobs, know long how they've been there. Research the peers, the people who are probably on their team. Know the job and know why that matters. I mean, imagine why that kind of job inside of that company might matter, right? And know before the interview how you think you're going to fit and how you'll add value. I open almost every single one of my interviews with, hey, Leslie, I don't want to waste your time with the basics and stuff like that. So tell me a little bit about what you know about our company, and I'll kind of pick it up from there. And I don't expect you to know much. I'll pick it up there and go on the inside. And if Leslie is like most candidates, they say, well, I really hadn't had a whole lot of time. I think you guys you do something with retailers, right? And I'm kind of going, are you kidding me? I mean, I know your whole background before I go into an interview with you. I know it backwards and forwards. I know the people you've worked with. Checked out your LinkedIn profile. I know where you went to school. Only took me about 10 minutes, and you didn't bother to have the time to do it. And then I ask people sometimes, I'm like, hey, you didn't know anything about me? Did you see anything about my background? Oh, no, I hadn't. It's kind of going, are you kidding me? Right? Every once in a while, I have somebody that says, yeah, let me tell you about your company. You know, your company's in the retail technology, you do those kinds of things. Some of your customers are these, you know, your core value proposition is that one. I know that you've been working with that company for this period of time. I'm curious about what are some of the success stories you've had. And all I can tell you is that somebody knows that. Wow, it makes a big difference. Radically big difference. And nobody does it. I shouldn't say nobody. It's rare. So join us for resume or acing your interview, and we'll go into that in some detail. But it doesn't take much. I mean, come on, right? Just do that. Like, you know, give a shit, right? I mean, just do it. Item number 7 is waiting is not a winning strategy. Waiting is not a strategy. Waiting is not a strategy. So if you ever find yourself feeling like you want to tell somebody, well, I applied for a job and I'm just waiting, or went on an interview and hadn't heard back, I'm just waiting. Whoever said people are supposed to get back to you? Whoever made that rule up, right? I mean, yeah, maybe they ought to, but I mean, how about take control of your own destiny? How about not waiting? How about taking action? How about finding people? And oh, by the way, when you find a job that's posted online, go to LinkedIn and find the hiring manager, find the likely hiring managers. For a big company, it would be hard to find this particular one. Go find all the people who are hiring managers. Go find all the peers. Go find all the recruiters. Go reach out to all of them, right? Get busy. All I know is that if I was in job search mode, I know what to do for 60 hours a week to stay busy doing this kind of stuff. You will never run out of time doing this unless you live in super teeny tiny town and you want to work in the super teeny tiny town, you already know everybody. But I'm just saying that waiting is not a strategy. And if you find yourself waiting, there's always something that you can do. There's always a way to craft your story. People hide in rewriting their resume too much. And the answer is find people, connect with people, and go find people you can help, because waiting is not a strategy, right? That's what I've got to tell you about navigating career transition. So I hope that you found a few nuggets in there that are going to be of usefulness to you. And I'm happy to try to answer any other questions or comments or anything that anybody might have. I really do appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I sincerely hope that some of my random journeys and experiences are of value to all of you. I think it matters.
Definitely. And thank you so much, Gary. We do have some questions, and
Okay.
these are some that I would like to ask verbatim based on, exactly what they said. So I think
Okay.
it will help a lot.
Great.
The first one is, I just recently finished school for Network Plus, Security Plus, working on certifications. I see
Nice.
level 1 help desk jobs. They want you to have 1 to 3 years of experience. I have 3 years of outside plant technician at AT&T, but I'm still getting rejection letters. They want you to know multiple platforms. That's his question. And
Yeah. So my specific answer is this: the people you're getting rejection letters are junior recruiters who have no clue. What they're doing is they're keyword matching, and they have no clue what the real job is. All they're doing is they have some people up front, and actually some of it's automated, and they have some people up front who are some of the lowest paid people in the company, who are dealing with the onslaught of people who are applying for it, and they go, they have 3 years of experience, no, reject them. Do they have that particular platform? No, reject them. Right? So they don't even know what the job is, and they don't even know what those technologies are. I may not be right, but I probably am. And so the trick in that is to stop applying for jobs online and think that that's going to work. Instead, what you do is go find the hiring manager, which shouldn't be all that hard, right? Go find the hiring manager, go find other people on the teams, know that the other people on the teams might get a referral bonus, right? Go reach out to the human beings, because what you just told me is that you're applying for the job online and you're waiting, and what you're getting is a reject notice. Yeah, that's what's going to happen for the most part. So you're not going to get in that way. You're not going to go through the traditional way, because what they're doing is they're trying to chop off the bottom third and chop off the top third, and they can't recognize you as an outlier. They won't take into account your life experience and other experiences you have, because the person who's doing the screening, or the tool who's doing the screening, doesn't have the life wherewithal to be able to do that. You're expecting too much of them. So skip the system and go straight to the hiring manager, go straight to the team, and go straight to the people who really matter, and stop letting yourself get chewed up by the machine. That's what I would do.
Sounds like he's not getting through the gate to begin with.
Not getting through the gate. Let's go around the gate, right?
Yeah,
And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but go around the gate.
yeah.
Skip it. The gate,
Well,
all that front part is designed to screen you out.
Right. Well, and this is related. This other question is, when jobs are asking for 5 to 10 years of experience and you're just, all you have is the schooling and the training, what are you supposed to do? I think there's
So
something else behind
yeah,
that.
so here's the answer to that, which is this: the HR people who put 5 to 10 years worth of experience on there, not the hiring manager. HR people, most of them aren't any good at what it is that they actually do. They have no clue that years of experience doesn't relate at all to somebody's ability to do the work. All they're doing is trying to make their job easier. And I get it, I'll give them a break because they got way too much work to do. So they're trying to find a shortcut way to do their work, which is years of experience is something that they can count. That was put by those kinds of requirements are put there by somebody who isn't the hiring manager. So again, the quote unquote years of experience is the most ridiculous requirement that there's ever been. You can't change who you are or any of that kind of stuff, but all you can do is go direct to the source, be driven, be motivated. And what's fascinating to me is the effort and the behavior and what it takes for you to go do that kind of work and go reach out to the person, go find them and say, hey, I'm a this and a that. I solve these kinds of problems. I hear that you're trying to hire, entry-level people into your team, right? Here's the reason why that. And I had a person apply for a job send me a message one time that we were trying to hire some Unix administrator, and the message he sent to me because he was working around the system was, I eat Unix for breakfast and I'll work like a dog to ensure that everything that I do is top notch. Man, so again, I think that years of experience and those kinds of things are being put there by people who aren't really the hiring manager, and they're just trying to make their life easier. And I'm not necessarily saying that I don't understand. I'm just saying that that isn't going to help you and it isn't going to help them. Go direct. Go find the hiring manager. Go find the people who are on the team. And those people have no idea the years of experience matter, right? They'll know.
Mhm.
They will know how to evaluate you for who you are and the rest. And that what's happening is the machine is spitting you out, not the people. Go find the people who really have the problems that you solve. Go reach out to those people and go help the people, because the people are early stage in the machine don't have a clue, right?
Yep.
Maybe they do, but statistically, they don't have a clue.
Mhm. That makes sense.
I hope
Again, going around
that's
the gate.
helpful. That's what I would do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. This is a little bit different. If I'm looking for, I think they just need a little guidance here. If I'm
Yep,
looking for an entry-level IT help desk job, what
yep.
is the title for the hiring manager? What's that title that's going to catch their attention?
So what I do depends upon the size of the company, right? If it's a small to medium-sized business, you can do things like you can search for the word IT, you could search for the word technology. If it's a company of only 300 people, if you have to, you could look through everybody who works in that company. If it's a company of 30,000 people, it's a little bit different. So director of IT, IT manager, technology manager, you can look for other system administrators. You could look for somebody who's in that current role, and you could certainly reach out to. I mean, imagine that you were in a role on the help desk and somebody reached out to you and said, hey Bob, or hey Leslie, I see that you're on the help desk over there. I'm really motivated to do that kind of stuff, right? I mean, can you tell me a little bit about how did you get your job? Could you help me? Who's the hiring man? Go ask somebody, right? I mean, like, reach out to 5 people or 6 people in the organization and ask for their help. Somebody's going to help you. Now, if the way you're asking them is to say, I'm really needy and I'm looking for a job, they're not going to help you. If what you do instead is you say, hey, I'm an IT professional, I do those kinds of things, I'm motivated to make this kind of stuff happen, and I'm trying to find my way to the person who I can talk to who might be, so go after those people again. So I guess my story is always going to be the same, which is, of course, your question is how do you find them? So search for IT, search for technology, search for director, search for manager. And if you can't find the people who are likely managers and all, and by the way, you don't have to find the manager. Usually they all know what each other's jobs are. So reach out to all the people who are in that management kind of level, and then reach out to people who are peers and ask for their help. I
Perfect.
do that all the time when I'm recruiting. Man, I do that all the time.
That makes
People are
sense.
pretty helpful.
Yeah,
And by the
you're right.
way, only about 10% of the people are going to be helpful to you. So, I mean, unless you actually have of your peers, only about 10%. So that means if you send one message out, chances you're not going to get anything back. If you send 10 out, maybe one. So, I mean,
Hmm.
I send hundreds. I send hundreds,
Yeah, play the numbers, for
hundreds.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just a few more questions, Gary. This one is kind of related to what you're talking about. if you have an interview coming up, how do you approach reaching out to the person on LinkedIn? How do you make it not sound creepy in the initial message? And how do you make it not sound creepy when you mention their history during the job interview? Creepy versus informed.
Yeah, I don't think it sounds creepy, right? I mean, I get it why people might feel like that, but I mean, it starts with this. You're going to send them a connection request. When they accept the connection request, and you don't have to send them a message in the connection request. You don't even have to follow up with the connection request. But if it did, and if it were me and I was interviewing Leslie, I'll send Leslie a connection request because I know I'm interviewing with her next week. She accepts my connection request. I'm going to simply send a message over to her saying, hey, Leslie, I really look forward to our conversation this coming weekend, this coming Wednesday, right? Something as simple as that. And then during the course of the interview, there may come a time when, I can say, hey, I know you've been with this company for about 5 or 6 years. I was stalking you on LinkedIn. Your background is fascinating to me, right? I'm just curious, prior to that, I mean, what are your greatest successes? I think that it doesn't come, if you don't think it was creepy, it's not going to come across as creepy. It just comes across as, I'm super curious, right? Here's the thing. People like you more when you're interested in them. And so, to the degree that I did, for most hiring managers, to the degree that you did some homework on them and you're actually interested in them in terms of their job, in terms of their career, in terms of their successes and stuff like that, mostly that's going to build trust. I think for very few people will that feel creepy or inappropriate, I mean, it's super professional to do that. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I do it all the time and nobody's ever told me that it's creepy.
Okay. Okay. Just a couple more questions and then we
Sure.
can call it. I think these are important too. For example, why do recruiters generally not provide candidates feedback when they aren't offered the job? Do you have any enlightening thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
I could tell you exactly why we don't. There's 2 reasons. One is some are just flat out too busy. I mean, we're flat out too busy. They're flat out too busy. They're overworked as it is, and they're buried this deep, and they wish that. That's one reason. The other reason is because I've learned over the years. So if you didn't get hired, what I'm going to tell you is I'm going to tell you, hey, Leslie, things went really well. We could certainly see you as a member of our team. However, we decided to go with someone else, along the way. Might even be somebody you would have been excited to work with, right? So, I mean, I'll just let you off the hook saying it wasn't you. We love you, right? It's just we decided to go with someone else. I'm not going to tell you any of the real feedback. And here's the reason why. Because 20% of you are going to start causing me trouble. Half of you are going to want to object. Half of you are going to want to fight with me about it. Half of you are going to want to say, but, I don't have time to engage in that. 2% of you are going to go psycho. 2% of you are going to go back to the hiring manager. 2% of you are going to cause real trouble, right? I mean, I even had somebody go so far as to create a fake LinkedIn profile of me with a picture of a clown, right? I'm just saying that it doesn't do any good for me to give you any honest feedback. And unfortunately, there are enough psychotic human beings in the world that I've been taught over and over and over and over that to the degree that I'm really honest and I give you some actionable feedback, I pay for it. So it's not you wouldn't do that, but just know that the reason why we as professionals don't do it is because we have too many war wounds, too many scars from people being inappropriate and ungrateful. Are you still there, Alicia?
I'm sorry. I hear I've been talking and I was muted. So I said, yes, it makes total sense.
Yeah, right.
It's a challenge.
I used to try so hard to give people meaningful feedback and stuff like that, and I just paid the price for it, right? I just paid the price for it, and it's unfortunate.
Well, I mean, even in my own experience, I've given feedback and I've received it, and I'm not comfortable with either one a lot of the time, and it's just human nature too, to some degree.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. It's don't even open that can.
And usually the reason is not because of anything that you did wrong or bad or that you could have even changed. Usually the reason why somebody else is selected is because they were better, faster, cheaper. I mean, that's usually the why. Usually, people always want to know, what could I have done differently? And the answer is, the only thing you could have done differently was go back 15 years ago, change your entire career path, be better at what it is you do, and need to be paid less money. That's the only thing you could have done. So effectively, there's nothing you could have done. That's what happens most of the time.
Just move on to the next opportunity.
Yeah, just move on. And we as professionals, we can't afford to give you actually actionable feedback because, yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's too painful.
okay, I get it.
Yep.
Last question, and this is really kind of about the market. And the question is, what does Gary have to say about, for example, project management jobs at this time? Anything, any trends that you're seeing, any hot jobs that you're seeing that people should focus on to some extent?
You know what? I think so. It's a great question, but I don't think that the current situation, COVID or any of that kind of stuff, has changed the nature of any particular roles. It's changed the nature of industries, and it's changed the nature of a few specific companies. But it hasn't changed demand. It hasn't changed much what companies are doing. I mean, in the areas where there's been significant impact, those are singular spots. Travel and restaurants and things of that nature. For the clients that I see, which is primarily in high tech, but in marketing and other kinds of things, and e-commerce and the things that I have visibility into, it hasn't fundamentally changed the nature of their business. Project management is one of those things that has, for as long as I've been working, been important, and it's increasingly important. Analytics is increasingly important. And so IT roles, administrative roles, all the things that, that we have training programs around, those are all really solid. And I can't say that I've seen anything yet that shows me that any particular career path is better or worse than it had been in the past. I think, when we're on the other side of this, most of the things will come back. Now, the nature of how we work is going to change. Some companies will never move back to offices. A lot of people will work from home. So a lot of that kind of behavior is going to change. There will be a lot less business travel and the rest, but I don't think that there's going to be that material of an impact for the majority of people and the majority of professions. I think that it'll be a little while before things get back to any sense of normalcy, and I have no idea when that's going to be, but I think when it does, I think the professions are still, it's not going to juggle professions much, right?
Yep, okay. Thank you, Gary.
You're
Gosh,
welcome.
this has been great. We've pushed it a little too long, so I think it's time for us to head on out. If we missed your question or didn't quite get the right answer for you, or something was missing, shoot us an email. Let us know what your questions are. You do have a link at the end of this for feedback, so please give us that feedback. We very much learn from that, and we want your thoughts about how this is going. Join us for the next one. In 2 weeks, we'll be having Resumes That Rock, I believe.
Resumes that rock.
Woohoo! Which is,
Woo-hoo.
hey, I learned, I just want to interject, and Gary, I learned something new with every single one of these webinars. And as you know, I'm with you with every one.
Right.
So
It's a
thank you.
testament to the fact that if you've been to one of my webinars, you've been to one of my webinars, right? So
I love the stories.
even if it's the same one, right?
I always learn something new. So everyone, thank you all so
I'm
much.
so grateful to be here. Thank you, and thanks everyone for being here.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.